Not all study programs are created equal in Canada, but now you're about to finish your first 1 year program in Canada and you're thinking, will this actually lead to the life that you're trying to live permanently in Canada? If your work permit is going to be too short or your current program is not in line with in-demand occupations in Canada, this video will help you to understand which study program you can do that will be in line with in-demand occupations in Canada and therefore lead to long-term stability in Canada. And you don't have to worry about coming up with a $20,000 in tuition or cost of living because of today's video sponsor, Passage. Now, I'll tell you more about them later in the video. But first, why would you want to study a second program in Canada to increase your chances of permanent residency? Now, I hope this isn't news to you, but Canada reports several labor shortages across several sectors. And this is how they've created a lot of the immigration programs that exist today. They've identified areas and don't have enough people and occupations or industries that don't have enough workers to fill these gaps. And because of this, doing programs that are directly in line with these shortages and these needs, and some of these needs come about because of nationwide programs and family needs across provinces. And Canada is not just planning for now, it's planning for the future and projected shortages way into 2036. And so some occupations, once you're in, there is some level of stability, there is some degree of certainty. Of course, nothing is certain in this world, but there's some degree of certainty of long-term stability and therefore in line with immigration programs. But many students don't pick the right program. It's not enough to just study in Canada. Here are some of the mistakes that are plaguing the 3,024,000 temporary residents that are currently in Canada as of Q3 in 2025. First, they're in a program that does not align with any in-demand industry in Canada. Therefore, when you get out of school and you try to get a job, there's no matching NOC or there's an NOC mismatch, right? Not code mismatch, or even difficulty finding stable jobs in an occupation. Now, some people may have chosen to do a 1 year program because it was a lot more affordable, right? And of course, you know that's probably you take the risk. And I did a 1 year program, but that was 10 years ago. This is not 10 years ago. Right? This is a different playing field that we're in. This is a different landscape that we're in. And chances are, unless you have a bachelor's degree already, you're in the perfect age range, you probably know French, or you're in an in-demand occupation, you probably don't have enough points under the express entry system. And so it's likely that a 1 year program, if you don't meet that match, a 1 year program may not help you to materialize your long-term permanent residency goals. And so a 1 year program, NOC mismatch, and then there's a high level of competition. Depending on where you are in Canada, if you're in the GTA, in Greater Toronto area, you know how the job search is, right? And it's not easy anywhere, but if there's a high demand, if there's high competition, if employers have a lot of people to pick from, then it becomes a little bit tricky if you're in an oversaturated industry. Now, I mentioned earlier that there are 3,024,000 temporary residents in Canada as of Q3 in 2025. And all of those people are trying, maybe not all, maybe most of them are trying to get permanent residency in Canada. So you have to be strategic about the programs you decide to choose and therefore the industries that you end up in outside of school. So let's talk about the top 3 programs that to help you to make smart strategic decisions to therefore go into in-demand occupations, which are likely in line with immigration programs. We know the category-based express entry program. We know provincial nominee. We know the rural community and the Atlantic immigration program. All of those are centered around specific NOC codes. Right? And so the first one is early childhood education. Families are growing. The population that probably are teaching or have been teaching are going into retirement. And as the population grows, these needs continuously arise. So we're talking about daycares, we're talking about preschools or any kind of learning institution. They are going to need early childhood educations to fill the gaps that exist right now and are projected to be in need at least until 2036. And this is at a provincial level, and this is federally across Canada. All right. The express entry category based system under education, early childhood educators. Once you're in that NOC code, you belong to that category. If you go to any of the rural community immigration pilot communities, not all of them, of course, but majority of them have early childhood educators as a knock code on their list of in-demand occupations at a community level. And if you go to any of the provinces, if you go to Alberta, for example, even in Ontario, early childhood educators are a knock that is on the list for several of the streams at a provincial level. So federally, which is all of Canada, provincially, and different communities that are participating in immigration programs, early childhood educators check the box. Now, this is a 2-year program. And so if you are choosing a second program to get one more year, maybe this might not be a good fit, or maybe working with children is not your thing. But if this can be your first program, but of course, go into an occupation that you have a genuine love for, right? Anybody who's teaching my kids, I want you to like what you're doing, please. Okay. Now, if this is not for you, this does not tickle your fancy, you're not trying to sign up for a 2-year program, that's okay. We're going to talk about healthcare occupations next. But first, if right now you're already in Canada, you just completed a program, you're thinking, now I have to think about more money, more tuition. How do I come up with that money? Our sponsor for today's video is Passage, and they provide loans for international students to study in Canada. They provide loans for your tuition and your cost of living. But if you're already in Canada, you may not need that cost of living component because you're already here. And a big part of that cost of living component is for your visa requirement if you're outside of Canada. So if you're already inside of Canada, you may have a part-time job, you may have some support here. You may not need that cost of living requirements. You only need to show the tuition. When you go through Passage, you only need to have 25 to 30% of that tuition. So if you are doing a $20,000 program, for example, you only need to come up with $5,000 up front, and then it's broken up into manageable installments thereafter, where it's a lot more affordable, a lot more accessible, and it's not you trying to come up with $20,000. Now, at the end of this video, you're going to get a link to the eligibility checker. So stick with me to the end because we have more programs to talk about and things to think about as you think about this transition. Program option number 2. Now, Canada has a very aging population, and with an aging population, you have a lot of elderly people now who need care. They're going into nursing homes, or because they're at a different stage in life where health challenges may be a little bit more frequent than the younger folk. And so healthcare has people who are in need of personal support workers, nurses, pharmacists, technicians, and even assistants of pharmacists are an occupation and an overall industry that needs people continuously and consistently. And I don't know if that is a today problem. That is an age-old thing that's in a lot of countries that have boomers. By 2036, we're going to have the most 85-year-olds that the country has seen in a while. They're all going to be 85 in around that year because that's the generation of people who are coming up behind or ahead of us, our generation, right? And so you're going to have a lot of elderly people all at once that need care. And so Canada, like I said earlier, is not just thinking about the needs now, but projected needs all the way into 2036. And when you're thinking about, okay, let me consider one of these programs, you have to go to the school website, then you have to go and think about the financing. Through the Passage portal, you can apply for the college as well as the loan all in one portal. So you don't have to go to separate places to do different things. You go into Passage. When you check your eligibility at the end of this video, it's going to align you with programs that are recommended for you based on the answers that you give it. And if you want to go ahead and start an application, you can start an application right there for the school. Provide all the documents for your school, provide all the information for your loan, boom, submit, and Passage will do the job of getting your application to the school, getting your admissions letter to you, getting your provincial attestation letter, as well as getting your funding if you are approved for the funding. So you definitely want to check your eligibility at the end of this video. Let's talk about the next in-demand programs. Now, some people might like more hands-on, like a skills trade, for example, because early childhood education and personal support worker or nursing, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with children, you're dealing with a specific, set of problems. And maybe that's not for you, right? So maybe you prefer welding, plumbing, maybe you're an electrician or other skills trade. These are in demand and they are well paid. I can tell you that when I was a project manager working in project management for 8 years, Or welder made more money than me. If all the education that I had, the welder made more money and he doesn't have to take home the work, which I envied. Right? You go, you weld, you don't have to come home and think about it. Maybe you'll think about how good a job you did, but things like construction, infrastructure, those right now, as the population grows, even though they're trying to level things out, Canadians are having kids who are moving out and need housing and all of that stuff. And all of those things come together and require housing, electricians, plumbing, and then in the industrial world, welders are in high demand and are very needed, and these are programs that are available here at colleges in Canada, and they're supported by loans through Passage. And by the way, all the programs that I mentioned, early childhood education, nursing, personal support worker, pharmacy technician, these skills trades that I just mentioned, these are programs that are post-graduation work permit eligible, which means that you can get a work permit to work when you're done after school in a career that has potential long-term stability. So we're not just thinking about immigration, guys. There's life to live after immigration. But if we can align your career goals with immigration, wouldn't it be just like a wonderful world? So most of us that go to school in Canada, when we're thinking immigration or being able to stay, we're thinking express entry. And there was a time when express entry was a lot more predictable, a lot more accessible. But as we're seeing, even at the express entry level, everything is broken up into in-demand occupations that are based on labor shortages, in line with these programs that we're just mentioning. But I want you to think beyond express entry, and I want you to think beyond Toronto and Ontario. Okay. Ontario, rural Ontario, fine. But I want you to think beyond the greater Toronto area, popular areas, or places that you might even have family. I need you to think outside the box. I need to think outside the province, right? I need to think about the regional focus programs. I mentioned earlier, rural community immigration pilot. If you go to North Bay, if you go to Thunder Bay, if you go to Timmins, if you go to Sault Ste. Marie, I recall seeing early childhood educator on all of those lists of in-demand occupations at a community level. And then if you go a couple provinces over to the east and you go to the Atlantic provinces, go and check to see which immigration programs or which province over there, whether it's Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland and Labrador, or Prince Edward Island, that need these. I know that there is an education need over there for early childhood educators. So I want you to think beyond express entry. I want you to think beyond the popular areas, and I want you to think about these rural areas. I want you to think about these less populated and less dense areas, because there's going to be less competition over there, right? There are immigration programs that you have access to by mere means of living there. Okay, so I want you to think about these programs. I don't want you to focus on Toronto. And even if you go to school in Toronto, I want you to consider relocating after in an area there's probably less competition and there's an immigration program that you have access to. Now, if you like any of these programs, early childhood education, any of the healthcare line programs like personal support worker and nursing, or any of the skills trade programs like welding, electrician, or plumbing, Passage can help you to finance this study. You don't have to worry about coming up with all of the money. And Passage provides you with support out of school to help you to integrate into the job markets. Isn't that great? I actually had the privilege of sitting in on one of the meetings where a Passage representative was telling a student that an employer was ready to give her a job offer. So they help you from start to finish, through and through. Your finished school that help you to integrate into the job market. And I've seen that happen with many of the Passage applicants. Now, before you go, I do want you to go and check your eligibility. But first, let's go through a quick checklist, right? Let's just get a quick checklist to make sure that you're thinking things through just based on what we've said today. So first, whatever program you've chosen, does it fall under one of the key sectors or critical in-demand sectors in Canada? 2, is the program, are you going to graduate with some credential that is recognized? And is it going to be post-graduation work permit eligible? Meaning, will you get a work permit when you're done that program? And how long will your work permit be? That is so important and critical, which is why a lot of people do a second program in Canada anyway, because they may need more points and more time to gain Canadian work experience. I need you to have this on your checklist, and I want you to put it at the forefront of your mind. Are you willing to relocate? Move out of the GTA, go to Thunder Bay, go to Timmins, go to Pictou County in Nova Scotia. Are you willing to relocate? Put that on your checklist. And can you afford it? Can you afford to self-fund a $20,000 or $18,000 program? Or is it more accessible to you if you take a loan? You only come up with $4,000 or $5,000 and you can start school in the next coming semester. Remember that whenever you're making this decision, if you've already applied for your post-graduation work permit, this doesn't work. Post-graduation work permit is one shot. You only get it once. Okay, so you have to be thinking about these things before you get to that point of applying, because if you've already applied, it's a little bit too late if you're trying to get more Canadian work experience. Okay, so just be careful with that. And of course, most importantly, does the program, is it actually something that you're interested in? Will you be of service to your patients or your clients if you were to go into personal support worker or into early childhood education? And is it in line with the long-term needs that Canada has? Just go down the checklist, check those marks, and see if doing a second program is right for you. And if it is, make sure that they align with the in-demand occupations in Canada, right? I want you to treat this like a checklist before picking. I don't want you to just go based on your heart, and I don't want you to just go based on immigration. I don't want you to do that either, okay? Doing a next study program or the choice of the program that you choose to do next here in Canada can change the entire trajectory of your immigration journey. Okay, so you have to choose wisely. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. The short-term work permits are a little bit of a gamble at this point. You have to choose smart, and it's important that you figure out what the country needs and how do you fit into that mold, right? How do you fit into that mold? Now, Passage has an amazing eligibility checker for you to go through, input all your information. What country are you from? What job have you worked in before? What degree do you have now? You're going to go through that eligibility checklist. You're going to see which programs you may be eligible for. And then you're going to go through the process once you're choosing a program. Are you eligible for the loan? The eligibility checker will tell you that as well. Are you eligible for the loan? What will the loan look like? What's the interest rate and the payback periods? I want you to go through the eligibility checker and get all that information. The link is going to be in the description below, but it's also pinned in the first comment here on YouTube. And you know what I want you to do? I need you to share this with one other person. 2026 is going to be no joke. And I'm not just saying that to incite fear. It just is what it is. Right? They've decreased the numbers again, including the numbers of intake for international students. So whatever decision that you're trying to make, please don't think that you have forever to make it. Okay? You have to make a decision, get your application in, get your study permit extended, get into the school based on the intake numbers, because it's not unlimited the way it used to be in the past. Okay? So they're only accepting a certain amount of people. You're going to need a provincial attestation letter, and it's important that you make this decision. Of course, if you need legal advice or legal assistance, please seek legal advice just to get some counsel on what other program would suit what you already do and what would that look like. The link to Passage's eligibility checker is linked below for you to go and check your eligibility. And if you need assistance with your application, please reach out to me. All of my contact information is down below. I can certainly help you. And if you have any questions, I can help you resolve those questions. Please, if this video again was helpful to you, share it with another temporary resident, another international student who may need a solution right now and may feel fresh out of options. The collateral that you have to come up with for this loan is only 25 to 30% of the tuition right now, and that might be a lot more achievable than trying to, take the risk with a 1-year work permit. Remember to go and check your eligibility on Passage's page. If this video was helpful to you, I want you to share it with one other person who is struggling on their PR journey right now, because this might just be what they need. And remember to go and check your eligibility on Passage's website. Click the link in the description. Like this video, and I will see you in the next video.